What if I told you that the most successful beauty brand of the 2010s didn't actually, want to sell you makeup?
I mean, it sounds completely counterintuitive, right?
Right.
But it's totally true.
Yeah. So I want you to think about that perfectly messy bun. You know the one?
Absolutely. The one that looks like you just rolled out of bed.
Exactly. Like you just gathered your hair, secured it in 2 seconds, and went out the door. But in reality, it took like 45 minutes.
Right. And half a bottle of really expensive texturizing spray.
Yes. And probably 14 strategically hidden bobby pins. Have you ever wondered about the massive amount of invisible labor it takes to look like you put in absolutely no effort at all?
It's honestly one of the defining paradoxes of modern consumer culture. Like this relentless, highly engineered labor of appearing completely effortless.
Totally. And today, our deep dive into the source material is going to explore the absolute epicenter of that paradox. We are pulling from this really fascinating book, Glossy, by Marisa Meltzer.
It's such a good read.
It really is. So our mission today is to track the rise of Emily Weiss and her 1.8 billion, yes, billion with a B beauty empire, Glossier.
Which is just a staggering number.
Right. We're going to unpack how she took this simple blog about what rich women keep in their bathroom cabinets and transformed it into a generational lifestyle brand.
And of course, we'll get right into the messy contradictions of the entire girl boss era.
We have to. So just to set the stage for you, if you were anywhere near the internet in the last decade, you know the Glossier phenomenon.
Oh, for sure. The signature millennial pink.
Exactly. The iconic pink bubble wrap pouches and just this cult-like devotion from its fans.
What's fascinating here is that Glossier wasn't just moving inventory. They fundamentally shifted an entire industry.
How so?
Well, they decided that the consumer, and not the traditional magazine beauty editor, was the ultimate authority. I mean, they sold a highly curated, democratized identity.
Right, where the physical products were almost secondary?
Exactly. Secondary to the cultural club you were basically buying into.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to really understand how Glossier became this absolute juggernaut, we have to look at the founder, Emily Weiss.
Yeah, her backstory is crucial.
It really is, especially her lifelong obsession with curating her own image. So she grew up in Wilton, Connecticut, which is, a very wealthy, very traditional American town.
It's preppy.
Very. But she wasn't just blending in. There's this quote in the book where a classmate describes her as a Manolo in a school full of Birkenstocks.
I love that description because, while her peers were wearing Abercrombie and Fitch and hanging out at lacrosse games, she was showing up to the first day of middle school in thigh-high stockings and a kilt.
Consciously channeling the movie Clueless.
Exactly. And she carried a Louis Vuitton bag in high school.
Yeah.
But we shouldn't mistake this for simple teenage materialism.
No,
it was an early manifestation of this preternatural drive to access and master a very specific elite world.
I have to push back a little on that.
Okay, go ahead.
A lot of kids in Fairfield County, Connecticut have money in designer bags, right? What makes her trajectory any different from just standard inherited privilege?
That's a fair question.
Yeah.
The difference is really her ability to decode adult social signals. She didn't just buy the clothes,
Right.
She completely understood the power dynamics behind them. While she was still in high school, she leveraged a standard babysitting gig into an internship at Ralph Lauren.
Oh, wow, just from babysitting.
Yeah, simply by cornering her neighbor who worked there and basically asking for a job. And once she was in the building, she didn't just quietly fetch coffee.
I'm guessing she made an impression.
Oh, definitely. She showed up to the corporate office in clothes she had meticulously sewn herself.
Wait, really? She sewed her own clothes for a Ralph Lauren internship?
Yes. The book highlights this incredible moment where she's sitting in the corner of a meeting and Ralph Lauren himself stops the presentation.
No way.
He turns to this high school intern and literally asks for her opinion.
That requires a level of fearlessness that most adults don't have, let alone a teenager.
Totally. And that poise carried her right into college at NYU and then straight into the halls of Teen Vogue,
where she became known in the fashion industry as the hyper-competent superintern, which naturally led to her being cast on MTV's reality show The Hills.
a topic she famously avoids discussing today, by the way.
I can imagine, but she's only on set for a brief period, right?
Yeah, very brief. But MTV editors recognized her distinct persona immediately. I mean, they edited her into a 3-episode arc where she served as the ultimate foil to the laid-back LA cast.
Right, she was this serious, intimidating New York intern who just knew how to casually drop the word chinoiserie into a sentence.
Exactly. Chinoiserie, like who says that on MTV?
So looking at this timeline, she functions almost like a social hacker.
Oh, social hacker captures the mechanism perfectly.
Yeah, because she had this unique ability to infiltrate highly guarded adult spaces, map out the social hierarchies, and just figure out exactly what everyone was using to signal status.
Her early life was absolutely a masterclass in reading subtext. She understood what people valued and how to seamlessly insert herself into their orbit.
Which is a pretty rare skill.
Very rare. And that specific skill decoding what people desperately want to project about themselves would become the entire engine of her future business.
Which brings us to 2010. So she's navigating these elite fashion circles, working a day job at Vogue, and she realizes the power dynamic in media is shifting.
Right, a massive shift was happening.
The real influence wasn't in the highly polished, retouched magazine covers anymore. The actual magic was happening in the makeup chair before the shoot even started.
Because she noticed a massive gap in the market. Traditional beauty media was very top-down, like an editor basically telling you what to buy.
Dictating the trends.
Exactly. But the reality of how women actually talk about beauty is horizontal. It's peer-to-peer. It's intimate secrets traded behind closed doors.
So she takes a $750 camera and she launches a blog called Into the Gloss.
A brilliant move.
And the main attraction was this column called Top Shelf. She would literally go into the actual bathrooms of fashion insiders, supermodels, celebrities.
Just sit on the floor with them.
Yeah, sit on the bathroom floor and interview them about the half-used bottles sitting on their sinks.
The brilliance of Top Shelf was how it completely collapsed the high-low gap of consumerism.
What do you mean?
Well, you might read an interview with supermodel Karlie Kloss, right? And she's raving about a standard $5 tube of Crest 3D white toothpaste.
Oh, I remember that. But then, like 2 sentences later, a major fashion figure like Lauren Santo Domingo casually admits she doesn't wash her own hair.
Right.
And then she casually name drops a $100 cult French exfoliating toner called Biologique Recherche P50.
Yes. P50.
Suddenly, having that obscure, foul-smelling French toner sitting on your bathroom sink signaled to anyone visiting your apartment exactly who you were.
It was the ultimate status symbol.
But I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Go for it.
Reading about a fashion insider using a $100 toner just sounds like an episode of Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. Like, why would an average college student reading this blog care? How does voyeurism translate to a billion-dollar brand?
Because it wasn't just voyeurism, you see. It was democratization.
Okay, explain that.
Before Into the Gloss, that $100 French toner was a secret kept strictly behind the guarded doors of elite dermatologists. Vice was basically taking the velvet rope down.
Oh, I see.
Think about the last time you bought a skincare product because a close friend swore it changed their life.
Probably last week, honestly.
Exactly. Vice was doing exactly that, but scaling that intimacy to millions of readers. Furthermore, the comments section of this blog became a massive, free data mining operation.
Wait, how so?
Well, by sitting in those bathrooms and cultivating this super engaged readership, she was gathering real-time data.
Data on what, exactly?
On exactly what women loved, what they hated about traditional makeup, and what they felt was missing from the market. She wasn't guessing what the market wanted.
Her readers were handing her the blueprint.
Every single day in the comments.
That is so smart. Because if you have a highly active community explicitly telling you what they want, the logical next step is to manufacture those products yourself.
Precisely.
Like, why redirect your readers to buy someone else's lip balm when you can create the ultimate lip balm and capture all of that revenue?
But making that leap from media to manufacturing requires capital.
Yeah.
Serious capital. And this is where Vice ran into a massive wall.
Yeah, she went out to pitch venture capitalists on Sand Hill Road.
And she faced dozens of rejections.
The book details how she would walk into these boardrooms, a young woman without a traditional MBA, pitching a beauty concept to a table of older male investors.
I can only imagine those meetings.
Right. She'd hand them a meticulously crafted gift bag of her proposed products, and they would look at it and say, "Thanks, I'll ask my wife what she thinks."
Oh, cringe. They completely missed the point.
Entirely.
And they missed it because they were looking at the physical product, not the psychological moat.
The psychological moat?
Yeah, traditional VCs in that era, understood technology or maybe direct-to-consumer supply chains. They did not understand the value of an internet community. They literally couldn't quantify the loyalty of a comment section.
Until she met Kirsten Green of Forerunner Ventures.
Yes. Kristen Green understood the paradigm shift immediately.
She saw that Weiss wasn't just making a moisturizer.
Exactly. She was weaponizing her audience's data. So Green gave her a $1 million seed investment, which provided the fuel to finally launch Glossier.
And in October 2014, the rocket ship takes off. They launch Glossier's Phase 1, and it's incredibly restrained, actually.
Very curated, just 4 basic products.
Right, a soothing face mist, a priming moisturizer, a universal salve called Balm.com, and a sheer skin tint.
It reminds me a bit of Clinique's famous 3-step system from the 1960s.
Yes, but entirely repackaged for the internet age.
That's a really astute comparison, because Clinique told women in the 60s, this is a scientific routine tailored to your skin.
Right, very clinical.
But Glossier took that concept, stripped away the clinical sterility, and infused it with pure digital aesthetics.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me. The way they launched these 4 products felt entirely divorced from traditional beauty marketing.
How do you mean?
I look at their strategy and it mirrors streetwear drops, like how a skate brand like Supreme releases a limited run of t-shirts.
Oh, definitely.
Glossier created this intense scarcity. They built hype on Instagram, and they essentially designed a uniform for the cool girl down to the actual shipping materials.
Okay, let's break down the mechanics of those shipping materials, because it's an absolute masterclass in behavioral design.
The pink pouches.
Yes. The products arrived in these pink, bubble-wrap Ziploc pouches. They were initially just meant to protect the bottles during shipping,
But they became a phenomenon of their own.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because they were visually distinct and largely unbranded, they became highly visible clutches.
You would literally see people carrying them at the airport or using them as pencil cases in college lecture halls.
By making the packaging recognizable but functional, they turned every single customer into a walking physical hashtag.
Wow.
You were instantly signaling your membership in the club. I mean, they hijacked the exclusivity of a $500 streetwear drop, but applied it to a $12 tube of lip balm.
And the color they chose was absolutely inescapable, Pantone 705C.
Also known globally as millennial pink.
Millennial pink. It was everywhere.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, millennial pink wasn't just a color trend, right? It was a visual representation of a major cultural shift.
Like a shift away from what?
Well, the beauty industry before Glossier was heavily focused on high-maintenance glamour. Like, the prevailing trend was aggressive contouring.
Oh, like hiding your flaws.
Exactly. Hiding flaws and mathematically restructuring your face with heavy, heavy foundations. Glossier just inverted the entire paradigm.
They shifted the narrative from makeup as a tool to cover up to skincare as a tool to show off.
Precisely. The pink represented a concept cultural critics dubbed ambivalent girliness.
Ambivalent girliness. I like that.
It's femininity with an arched feminist eyebrow. The underlying message was basically, I care about my appearance, but I am too busy and too important to be a prisoner to it.
The whole no makeup aesthetic.
Right, like you're already inherently fantastic, so just add a sheer tint, brush up your eyebrows, and go live your life.
But the irony, and this is really the crux of the entire brand, is that achieving that supposed effortless look is actually incredibly demanding.
Oh, incredibly.
The messaging was, you look good exactly as you are, but the reality required to pull off that sheer dewy look was honestly punishing.
We see this paradox most clearly when we look at the gap between the marketing of their hero products and the reality of the founder's own routine.
Let's take Boy Brow.
The holy grail.
Right. This was a tinted pomade that gave you thick, bushy, slightly tomboyish eyebrows, and it was a massive, unprecedented hit.
Yeah.
At one point, there was a 10,000 person wait list.
Which is insane for an eyebrow gel.
It is. A fan literally left a 5-star review claiming she was hit by a car, went to the hospital, and proudly noted her boy brow was the only part of her face that remained flawless.
That is dedication to the brand.
Truly. So the brand is selling this breezy, low-maintenance dream, right?
But simultaneously, Weiss publishes a diary on Into the Gloss called The Little Wedding Black Book.
Oh my gosh, this post is fascinating. She details the beauty prep for her own wedding, and it is the absolute antithesis of effortless.
To put it mildly.
She chronicles months of grueling, hyper-expensive procedures. We are talking about getting colonics.
Yep.
She wrote about getting electrical microcurrents shot into her glutes to lift them, subtle hair extensions, specialized personal trainers. The sheer volume of hidden mechanical labor required to look naturally glowing was staggering.
And after all of that intense work and money, she rated how she looked on her wedding day as merely an 8 out of 10.
An 8 out of 10. That's so sad, honestly.
That post sparked a massive backlash because it completely shattered the illusion. I mean, the brand's core promise was that you didn't need to change yourself.
Right.
But here was the architect of that brand, going to extreme, almost clinical lengths to achieve conventional perfection, only to still feel inadequate. It exposed the exhausting machinery behind the effortless aesthetic.
And that illusion didn't just fracture in personal blog posts, It showed up in the physical product lines, too.
Very true.
Glossier painted words like inclusive and thoughtful in giant letters on their office walls. But when they launched their Perfecting Skin Tint, a foundation meant to blur imperfections, they released it in exactly 3 shades.
Just 3.
And all 3 were light. How does a brand built on community feedback launch something so exclusionary?
It's a glaring contradiction. When you launch a complexion product with only 3 light shades, you are sending a very clear, undeniable message about who you envision as your default consumer.
Absolutely.
The company eventually scrambled to expand the shade range, of course. But that initial launch alienated a massive demographic of women of color. It perfectly highlighted the trap of the broader girl boss era.
Weiss notoriously hated the term girl boss, right?
That despised it. Many female founders rejected the term because it carried a diminutive, often sexist undertone.
Right, I get that.
However, the book argues she fully embodied the era's fundamental contradictions. Like, the girl boss movement was defined by utilizing the progressive language of female empowerment, inclusivity, and community building,
While behind the scenes.
while simultaneously operating a ruthless capitalist enterprise that enforced rigid, expensive, and exclusive standards. It was corporate ambition wrapped in millennial pink packaging.
And this dissonance between the sunny democratic public image and the highly curated exclusive reality, it trickled directly down into the company's corporate culture.
It really did.
It sounds like stepping inside a pink panopticon.
A panopticon is the perfect metaphor here. In a panopticon prison, the inmates behave because they might be watched at any moment, right? So they end up policing themselves.
Exactly.
The corporate culture at Glossier functioned very similarly. It created a surreal environment of extreme highs and intense psychological pressure.
On paper, the highs sound like a bizarre tech utopia. I mean, they hosted Camp Glossier.
Oh, Camp Glossier.
It was this incredibly lavish company retreat in the woods featuring custom swimwear, jewelry-making stations, canoes, and a giant inflatable jumping pillow on a lake called the Blob.
It sounds wild.
At one point, Weiss mandated that the entire staff learn a viral Drake dance and perform it together in the woods.
That is peak 2010s startup culture right there.
It really is, and they operated out of a manicured Soho office designed by a high-end architect. The meeting rooms were named after icons like Beyoncé.
Naturally.
The air constantly smelled like $70 Diptyque candles, custom floral arrangements were swapped out weekly, and the refrigerators were perfectly aligned with organic coconut water.
But the sensory experience of that office was actually designed to enforce conformity.
In what way?
There was a strict, unspoken dress code. Employees felt immense, silent pressure to physically embody the Glossier girl aesthetic.
Right, you had to look the part.
Completely. One employee recalled a manager passively suggesting her shorts were too short. You couldn't just have a messy desk with loose papers either. Your workspace had to look like a curated Instagram post at all times.
And despite all the organic yogurt and the beautiful surroundings, the actual wages, especially for the retail workers in their physical showrooms, were notoriously low.
Yeah, that was a huge issue.
And they relied heavily on non-disclosure agreements. Plus, the culture was intensely hierarchical. I read about this specific group called the OGs.
Right, the OGs. They were the beautiful early hires who often had massive Instagram followings of their own.
So they came with their own clout.
Exactly. They were heavily favored by management and frequently used as the actual models in the brand's ad campaigns.
So it wasn't just a tech startup, it was a high school cafeteria.
Pretty much.
The promise of democratizing beauty just created a new, highly stressful hierarchy. I mean, if you didn't have the right effortless look, the right scrunchie, or the right social media clout, you were firmly on the outside looking in.
This raises an important question about the modern workplace, specifically the danger of the friendly corporation.
What do you mean by friendly corporation?
Well, when a company's entire identity is built on selling community-like, when the brand positions itself as your cool older sister, the professional boundaries blur completely.
Oh, I see.
Employees, and particularly the retail workers who Glossier literally titled offline editors, are often manipulated. They are expected to accept lower wages and perform massive amounts of emotional labor in exchange for the sheer privilege of association.
The privilege of just being near the brand.
Right. The narrative becomes, you aren't just doing a job, you are living a movement. And that is an incredibly effective strategy for keeping labor costs down while demanding utter devotion.
So what does this all mean? We've tracked Emily Weiss from a wealthy teenager with a terrifying knack for observation to a blogger sitting on bathroom floors, right up to a CEO who defined an entire generation's aesthetic and built a billion-dollar brand.
It's quite a journey.
It is. What is the ultimate takeaway from this massive cultural footprint?
I think Glossier's ultimate legacy isn't the popularization of bushy eyebrows or a pink bubble wrap pouch.
No.
No. Their legacy is proving a fundamental psychological truth about the 21st century consumer.
Yeah.
In a world completely saturated with identical physical goods, the most profitable thing a company can sell isn't a moisturizer.
What is it then?
It's the feeling of belonging. Glossier mastered the art of making a basic retail transaction feel like an initiation ritual into a highly desirable, perfectly curated club.
It all comes back to that mirror and the immense effort required to look like you aren't trying at all. So to wrap up, the next time you find yourself reaching for a product because the packaging is aesthetically pleasing or because the brand just gives off an immaculate vibe, take a second and ask yourself.
Ask yourself what?
Are you actually buying this for what the ingredients do, or are you just paying a subscription fee to signal to the world which cultural club you belong to?